SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and the goal of that is to leverage both the technical aspects of your site as well as creative strategies to rank higher in search engines. Let's take a look at a search page. For our course, we'll be optimizing a cake store website. So let's use the search term cake delivery. I'll type this into Google. And now Google and any other search engine will always fill the results page with what it thinks is most relevant. So up top here, we have some sponsored ads. You can click through them, might be able to see more or less. If we scroll a bit further down, we'll see the local results, which show us some local stores. For each of these results, we'll see a distance, a rating, a description, and an image of that store. This information is usually called microdata, and if you configure your site correctly, you can make sure that search engines have access to all this information, and then they can choose when they display it. We can scroll a bit further down, and here we see the unpaid listings, also called the organic listings. And this is what we want to optimize. Now, every single search engine results page is going to look a little bit different. Sometimes there are no ads up top, or there are no local results, but there's always going to be organic listings. And if you can optimize these, you can see huge increases in traffic to your site. There have been several studies that have looked into click-through rates, and their findings are what you'd expect. The higher you are in rankings, the more clicks you're going to get. If you're ranked second on a page and you think you can get to the number 1 spot, it might be worth doing because you could double the amount of traffic that you get for that specific search term. Similarly, if you're at the bottom of the second page for a specific term because you've never optimized your site, and you think you can get to maybe the bottom of the first page, say the 7th or 8th position, you can double or triple the search volume you can get for that term. There are a lot of factors with SEO. A lot of it has to do with your content, such as whether or not your message is unique or compelling. Search engines like Google can tell if someone bounces off your website if the content isn't useful. The structure of your content can also be a big factor. If you have poor tags or categories, search engines will have a hard time understanding the structure of your site, and they might point users to the wrong page. Your content is also important because writing good content is one of the main ways of getting links, and links are very important for SEO. You can think of a link like a vote for your site, and the more votes you get, the better off you are. So if you make an invaluable tool or post, you could get a lot of links, which will be very helpful for your SEO. Throughout this course, we're going to focus on the technical aspects of SEO. That means making sure that every page has a page title, a meta description, and microdata. Once everything is set up, it only takes a few minutes to optimize a page or blog post, and that optimization will tell search engines everything they need to know. This will make sure that you're ranked as highly as possible. Before we start optimizing, we need to know what keywords we want to rank for. Keyword research involves many tools, and depending on how big the project is, it could take weeks of work. We have a 4-hour course called SEO Keyword Strategy here in the library if you really want to dig in. What I want to briefly cover is that there are 2 basic keyword strategies and you should pick one before we move forward. The first is the fat head approach. That's where you try to optimize your site for one or a few terms that have a large search volume. So for the store we're going to build, we could try to go for the keyword cake store. There's going to be a ton of traffic for that term, and if we rank well for this term, we could receive thousands of visits every month. The great part about the fathead strategy is that you don't need a giant list of keywords that you're always trying to optimize. You have one keyword, and all of your copy and pages are about that one keyword. The downside is that it's really hard to rank for one of those popular terms. There are thousands of other sites trying to rank for the term cake store. What's a bit easier is the long tail approach. That's where you go for a bunch of search terms that are less popular but also have less competition. So instead of trying to rank for cake store, we might try to rank for cake store in Carpinteria, or vegan cake store, or catering for a birthday party in Carpinteria. All of these are going to be much smaller terms, and it'll take a while to write articles or sections of your site for each of these terms. And since these terms are so specific, there's less competition, which means it's easier for you to rank well. Generally speaking, the long tail approach is going to be a much easier strategy. Unless your current site is already ranking well, I'd focus on long tail keywords that address a specific question or specific questions that your audience has. It's a much easier approach than trying to rank for a general term. For my site, I'm going to go with a long tail approach, and I have a few keywords in mind so I can start optimizing some of my posts for those keywords. We're mostly going to focus on the technical aspects of SEO within WordPress, but there are some technical aspects outside of WordPress, and to really optimize your site, you want to make sure that everything is accounted for. The first factor is speed. Search engines might penalize you based on your website's speed because they know that it is a poor user experience. The slower your website, the more people will become frustrated and leave. If your website takes longer than 3 seconds, you'll likely lose 25% of your traffic. People don't like slow websites, so search engines will tend to show faster websites. There are a few things you can do here. The first is to get good hosting for your website. If you have budget hosting that's $5 to $10 a month, you might be running on a slow server. And no matter how you optimize other parts of your website, you'll always have a slow site. So make sure that you aren't using budget hosting. This site shows in-depth testing for various hosts, and it's organized by price ranges, so you can find the best host for your budget. The speed of your site can vary wildly depending on how you configure it, but knowing you have good infrastructure behind the scenes sets yourself up for success more than optimizing your site on a slow server where you'll never make progress. Another factor is security. Search engines are now giving boosts to sites that run everything through SSL. If you can add a security certificate to your site, you can get a small boost from this. With Let's Encrypt becoming more popular, most website hosts are now offering free SSL certificates, and it usually only takes a few button clicks. You should absolutely run your site over SSL at this point. Some browsers like Chrome will tell users they're on an insecure site, so you'll start to lose traffic just for not being secure. The demo site we're using is on a subdomain that doesn't yet have SSL, and if this was a real site, I would make sure to have an SSL certificate before launching. By the time you launch, you should have an SSL certificate. There are a ton of other ranking factors, many of which offer tiny benefits like the age of a domain or how long that domain has been active. But usually, elements like this aren't worth spending too much time on. They have so little value, I would rather spend time writing good content and getting links, which can be much more useful to ranking well. Before we start talking about specific WordPress plugins, there's a couple things that we can change that'll make a huge difference to our SEO. If you notice, the URL for our About page is our domain name.net page ID equals 5. We can make that a lot nicer by our domain name.net/about. Let's do that in WordPress. In the admin of our site, I'll go down to Settings, Permalinks, and then I'll go ahead and select Post Name. So now it'll look something like this. So for our About page, it'll be /about. You can select any of these except for plain, and it should work pretty nicely. I'll click Save. Let's go back to our About page and we'll refresh this. And now it is /about. Search engines prefer easy to read URLs like this. So this is the first setting that you should change when you're optimizing any site. Another setting that we can change, and part of any SEO strategy, will likely be writing content. And content in WordPress can be grouped by categories and tags. I'll go to our post here, and I'll scroll down to one of our recipes, pumpkin pie. And you can see under categories, it's listed as a recipe, and under tags, it's also listed as a recipe. Both of these taxonomies can be crawled by search engines, meaning that there is a page on my site that shows all of the posts in the category recipes. And there's a page on my site that shows all of the posts with the tag recipe. Google and other search engines won't know which one to send users to. So you get some users that'll go to the category page for recipes, and some users that'll go to the tag page for recipes. Your analytics won't look impressive since your users are being divided into 2 different pages, and it'll be twice as much work to optimize your landing pages. Make this easy for Google and yourself and don't have any crossover between categories and tags. In this case, recipes as a category makes sense to me, so I'll remove the tag recipe. And I can actually go into the tags menu and delete it entirely. Under posts, I'll go down to tags. I'll scroll down to recipe, and I can delete this entirely from the other 2 remaining posts. There's no hard and fast rule for categories and tags. Some sites exclusively use tags. Some will only use categories, and many use a combination of both. As long as there isn't crossover where you have a category and tag with similar or identical names, you should be good to go.